Good morning. It's Market Day Report. Welcome to almost the weekend. That's right. We're getting close, right? Well, and before we get to the weekend, I know this is in the second segment, but we will get a cattle on feed report, and that's coming up after we close the markets today. Right now, before we open the markets, what about the overnight action? Let's start with the corn market. Down 3/4 of a penny at 425 and 3/4. March contract trading a penny lower as well. Also in the overnight session, a pullback in the beans. You know, beans have been lower for 3 straight sessions, losing 3.5 overnight to 11.19. Wheat market. Now, we were lower across the board, all 3 exchanges yesterday. December Chicago, 526 1/4, down 3/4 of a cent. And Kansas City has been lower 3 straight sessions, though the D's tried to move higher overnight, 507 3/4. And Minneapolis, 2 days lower and overnight in the red. How about the cotton market before we get to our guest? Mixed trade, but the big news here, look at the low on the December. I know it's lightly trading, but that's 60-cent cotton. Brian Hoops is president, Midwest Market Solutions. All right, Brian, lots of red, but really continuing the trend we've seen for what, 2 days now?
Well, make it 3. We had 3 private export sales, Tony. Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, all soybeans sold to China. We had 3 sessions of lower values. And we didn't have a sale this morning, so maybe we can recover off of these lows. Otherwise, we're starting off the day on some pressure. You know, we closed on support on Wednesday night, and then Thursday we started to trade below it and close below it. So now the market's searching for that next technical support area, trying to stimulate some demand. And one thing that's notable here, notably absent, is corn sales. We have been without any corn sales for this entire week when the USDA offices have opened back up, which is a real disappointment, as we had some sales, a lot of sales actually prior to the government offices closing. But now that they're back open, no sales. I think that's a little disappointment to the trade, and we're seeing corn start to set back. You have options expiring today on the close, and then you have delivery period beginning. So as we mentioned earlier in the week, there's a massive amount of open interest, and that's starting to being worked through, but there's still some that needs to be worked out today. So you'll see more positioning in those December grain options, more positioning as we go closer to that delivery period beginning. Weather in South America is something that's closely being watched as well. They're a little bit wet in Argentina and would like to dry off. In northern Brazil, they would take some rains. They've been a little dry, but there is a forecast for rains in the next several days, and that is also putting a little pressure on the market. So it feels like a little heavy here this morning, at least until we get through the delivery period and to get the options to expire. Maybe we can see better demand trends, and if these rains are a bust, take another leg higher in the South American weather in the corn and soybean markets.
Hey, Brian, I started with the tease for a report that comes out later today, so we'll take a break. When we come back, we'll talk about that cattle on feed report and get set for another trading session. Market Day Report continues in a moment. All right, 1, 2, 3 straight days lower for the cattle market. So even if we close higher today, it'll be a lower trade for the week. But could there be more reason to go lower today? We'll find out in a moment. Cash trade in the south has been 222 to 224, north 215 to 219. Dressed, how about this range? Dressed, I found some at 332. Up to 347. Look at live cattle right now. And 214.42 is where we ended the day yesterday on December. Down $1.87, 215.10 on the February. It was 215 lower. We go to feeders now, and the losses a little deeper here, as January lost 560 to 315.85, and the March at 308.02 fell $5.37. Hogs, however, have been higher for 2 straight sessions, higher across the board. yesterday. Brian Hoops is with Midwest Market Solutions. All right, Brian, between cash trade, between just the lack of good, solid, positive news, and maybe something that happened yesterday, is the cattle market maybe looking at a lower day again?
Let's just rip the Band-Aid off.
Okay.
We're going to open probably limit down or close to it in feeder cattle this morning. I hate to say it, but it looks like that's where we're going to go. Late yesterday, it was President Trump in the White House announced they are removing all tariffs on U.S. beef out of Brazil. They're also removing the tariffs on coffee and other egg products. This is an attempt to get food costs down, food prices down. And, some of it may have been factored into the market already because we have been lower, but there's a lot of selling that's shown up on the screen this morning. So feeder cattle could open limit down. Just hate to say it. Live cattle look like they could trade and they may open down sharply, but maybe not the limit. But they could easily get there as traders maybe who are long in the feeders try and sell fat cattle as a hedge against those positions. So limits today 925 on feeders and live cattle 725. So it may be a brutal, ugly day. Now you do have a cattle on feed this afternoon. Looks to be friendly. I'd say, if we have all this dialed in already, we'll open lower, and then in the first 30 seconds or a minute or so, we'll start to rally back and rally hard. If we can take out that opening range at some point during the morning, yes, we've got it all factored in. But until then, it looks like the market's going to be under some pressure, unfortunately, this morning. We've heard reports of beef being offered, Brazilian beef being imported in the United States yesterday or earlier this week. It was at $385 a pound. It's already being offered at $350. So it's a pretty steep discount just because these tariffs are being removed. And it looks like, this could have an effect in the marketplace for quite some time.
Brian, I'm kind of curious here because the Brazilian beef, years ago, and I maybe 5 years ago, we were importing our beef, the majority of it, from like Australia and New Zealand. So did we not just replace that, or is this new beef that's coming in other words, new trim to come in for the grind?
Yeah, this is, Brazil's probably the number one place where we import beef from as far as other countries go. And it is a lot of grind, a lot of trim. It's some of these other cuts of beef. So, from a fundamental standpoint, you step back and look at it, you wouldn't think this would have a major impact on the markets. But yet the fund traders, the fund managers, that's what we're focused on this morning. They're looking at these headlines and they're reading these headlines and thinking this is bearish. There's only one way to go. It's to sell, and they're hitting that sell button. We don't know if they're still net long, or if they're trying to build shorts because we don't have commitment of traders reports. It would be nice to know that, but we assume they're still long, trying to get out of these longs any way possible, and that could be just sell, kind of a panic sell mode this morning.
Yeah, this is going to be interesting. Well, we'll open the markets in a little over 6 minutes, so we'll let you go. It's about to get busy for you. Brian Hoops, President, Midwest Market Solutions. Again,